looking at the addendum for property subject to mandatory membership in a property owners association. This is not for use with the condo. Again, this is not for use for condo. If you're using a condo 1 to 4 contract, that stuff is already built into the contract, okay? This is used for when you're using residential non-condominiums, and it's in the HOA. So addendum to contract concerning the property at, and you put the name of this address, the name of the address. You put the full 911 address of the property, city, state, and zip code. And then you'll put the name of the property owners association and phone number. Sometimes if I have room, I like to put in the website if I have it. But let me kind of give you an example. First of all, you want to know, hey, how do I know if I'm in a HOA? How do you know anything when you're filling out anything with us? We start with Matt, MLS, agent remarks, attachments, tax records, right? And so we're going to start here, and we're going to go to MLS. I'm going to find a property in MLS. I'm just going to pull up anything. Let me see if I find something. Recently searched. Oh, it doesn't like that. Hold on 1 second. I've been digging all around here. Here we go. Let's go and let's find a family home. I'm just going to click on any of these. Let's see if it's an HOA. How do you know? We're going to check MLS. We're going to scroll all the way down here, and it says management company. This says, lets us know if we're in an HOA. Yes, we are. And that's the name of the management company right there and their phone number right there in the MLS. You can see it on various locations. This one right here, this home right here, let's see if it's in one. Yes, it's in an HOA. That's the name of the HOA, and that's the phone number. And it also has the mandatory fees for the HOA. It looks like it's $356 every year, okay? So let's use this one for an example in filling out our form. So street address, we're going to put in the full street address. Guys, more is always better if you have it. There's no problem with adding the county if you need to. I like to center it up. Name of property owners association and phone number, which is clearly here in the MLS. See that? The phone number usually goes back there, but it doesn't matter. Look, it's on there. If you have and sometimes some of the real estate agents will put the website to the owners association. You can copy and put that in this area as well. It's very helpful. One thing I want to talk to you guys about is the HOA addendum. This is something we may negotiate, all right? For example, in some cases, you might go into the MLS and you go to attachments, and the listing agent already has this form already pre-filled out in here for you. You do not have to utilize the form that's filled out in this in the MLS for you, okay? It's great, but no, if you want to write this form and let it be catered to your client. Okay, so let's talk about the subdivision information. You can check one of these 3 boxes, right? Let's go into each one a little bit more detail. So this is saying, and I usually put 21 days after the effective date. What? No. Let's say about 15. It's 15 days. So this says within 15 days after the effective date, if we select this one, of the contract, seller shall obtain, pay for, and deliver the subdivision information to the buyer. If the seller delivers the subdivision information, buyer may terminate the contract within 30 days after buyers receive the subdivision information or prior to closing, whichever occurs first. And the earnest money will be refunded to the buyer. If buyer does not receive the subdivision information, buyer at buyer's sole remedy may terminate the contract at any time prior to closing, and the earnest money will be refunded. What this is also doing, subdivision information is not just, what the rules, restrictions are, but it's a few things. At the very top is the subdivision information, meaning a current copy of the restrictions applying to the subdivision and bylaws and rules of the association. And the second thing, which is one of the most important things to know, is the resale certificate, of which are described by section 207003 of the Texas Property Code. Let me tell you what this does. Resale certificate means that somebody from the HOA is going to go out to the property and make sure that the house is in full compliance with the HOA guidelines prior to you transferring ownership over. The reason why is because, let's say, for example, you bought a house and somebody built a swimming pool in the back, but they never got HOA approval to build that pool. But you bought this swimming pool, you closed on it, you decided to click here, which says buyer does not require delivery of subdivision information, which means you also didn't get a resale certificate. So after you closed on that property, you get a nice little letter in the mail saying, hey, you need to remove that swimming pool because it's in violation of our deed restrictions. You can't go back and say, well, the other owner put it in. No. It's going to go with you, the owner. And now you're going to have to front the cost as a new buyer that just bought the house to remove that whole pool because the previous owner didn't get permission. So when you get the resale certificate, you make sure that that resale certificate lets you know that that home, everything done, any repairs, upkeeps, changes, alterations to the property has been approved by the homeowners association prior to you taking ownership. So you should be all in the clear with this resale certificate. And so I highly recommend, as a buyer's agent, you make sure your client is not stepping into some mud by selecting this right here, okay? Now, this is saying the seller shall obtain and pay for it. Now, this is the exact same thing saying, hey, we want to get it, but it's saying within 15 days after the effective date of the contract, the buyer shall obtain and pay for and delivery of the subdivision information for the seller. If the buyer obtains the subdivision information within the required time, buyer may terminate the contract within 3 days after buyer receives the subdivision information for prior to closing, whichever occurs first, and the earnest money will be refunded to the buyer. If buyer, due to facts beyond buyer's control, is unable to obtain the subdivision information within the time required, buyer may, at buyer's sole remedy, terminate the contract within 3 days after the time required or prior to closing, whichever occurs first, and the earnest money will be funded to the buyer. So, hey, you want this information. Either you're going to have the seller pay for you to get it, or you, the buyer, are going to pay for you to get it. There's some situations where, you want to get a deal done. Maybe the seller doesn't have the money and the buyer just wants to make sure they're all in the clear, then they can pay for it. How do you know how much this stuff is? You'll have to contact the HOA, which you have their name and phone number, to get an amount. And a lot of times the title company, as a courtesy, again, it's a courtesy, it's not their responsibility to order all this stuff, may go and try to get this information for you. But buyer's agent and listing agent, it's still your responsibility as the agent, especially the buyer agent, representing your client, to go ahead and call, especially if you're going to choose this option. Go ahead, call them so your client will have an idea of how much this is going to cost them to obtain the financial information, the resale certificate, and other things. A lot of the rules and restrictions and bylaws are online, so you usually don't have to pay for that. Sometimes you just get access and it's just a link. But the resale certificate is the thing that may cost a little money, because you're going to have somebody go out there, look at the property thoroughly, write up a report, and say you're in good standing. And once you get that, anything you get back, you're going to put in your file you're going to give a copy to your client. You're going to put it on file in Dotloop and Brokerman, okay? Now, this other one, the number 3. So this is, we're going to take it. Number 3 says, buyer has received and approved the subdivision information before signing the contract. So I already got all the information. And buyer does not or does require an updated resale certificate. Guys, this could mean, okay, say for example, someone was under contract with another buyer, they busted out, but they still have a copy of all the documents and they have a resale certificate, which they gave it to you, it's like maybe attached to the MLS because they already got it. So that resale certificate, you could say, hey, we're going to continue to use that resale certificate. It looks like the resale, certificate, they went out there only a week ago. So long as nothing has changed a week ago, then yeah, we'll use that resale certificate, no problem. But you can say, no, I don't want to reuse that resale certificate. It's been 6 months and it looks like your client's been doing more rehabs and changes since that resale certificate went out. I just want to confirm that you that everything was approved by the HOA. Now this isn't always you don't always have to go this route. You can have the You can say, okay, I don't require it. I see you made some updates. Can you please show me proof or give me information that you got it approved from the HOA? And the seller and the seller's agent may send you that, and that may suffice getting another resale certificate. You just have to think through and what's going to be in the best interest of your client, okay? If the buyer requires an updated resale certificate, so if you click that, does require. If the buyer requires an updated resale certificate, seller at buyer's expense shall deliver it to buyer within 10 days after receiving payment for the updated resale certificate from buyer. Buyer may terminate this contract and the earnest money will be refunded to buyer if the seller fails to deliver the updated resale certificate within the time required, okay? Which is 10 days after receiving the payment. All right, or you can select this. This is the one that when they have it attached to the MLS where they're trying to get by, where they'll say buyer does not require delivery of subdivision information. You can go this route, but now you know what you're risking by not asking for the subdivision information, bylaws, resale certificate, especially if your client is purchasing this house to do something specific. Maybe they want to build a pool. Maybe they want to Airbnb it or short-term lease it. You want to make sure that you can do that in this neighborhood. Or maybe I've had people that, they want to open a business. They want to do, certain types of facilities in a neighborhood. You definitely want to have your eyes on that updated not maybe the resale stuff, but you definitely want to have your eyes put on the subdivision restrictions and bylaws and rules of that association. Because the last thing you want to do is have clicked this, you bought a house, you move in, and you find out you can't do what you want to do, and you only have yourself to blame. So understanding what your client's use is for the property is very important. What if they want to put chickens in their backyard, a swimming pool, build a fence, build a whatever, they outside pergola, making sure it's beyond the building lines. They want to make sure. It's very important to have these subdivision information. Yeah. The title company or its agent, listen, the title company or its agent is authorized to act on behalf of the parties to obtain the subdivision information only upon request of the required fees for the subdivision information from the party obligated to pay. So they may send you the link so you can pay, or send you the phone number so the whoever you just selected here pays for it. But after that, we can receive a copy of it. This is saying that as well. Let's go over here. I guess we'll keep reading. Material changes. If seller becomes aware of any material changes in the subdivision information, seller shall promptly give notice to the buyer. Buyer may terminate the contract prior to closing by giving written notice to seller if any of the subdivision information provided was not true, or any material adverse changes in the subdivision information occurs prior to closing, and the earnest money will be refunded to the buyer. Like, say, for example, I'm using Airbnb or short-term rental because that's been a very popular thing in the last few years. So say, for example, you're buying a home and you're going to be doing short-term rentals with it. And you find out while you're under contract that the HOA is met, and guess what? They're not going to be allowing that anymore. It is a seller's obligation to let you, the buyer, know that. Now, if you find out later that, hey, you didn't tell me this and this has changed, then you are obligated. You have the opportunity to knock out if you need to under this provision. All right, let's talk about C, fees and deposit for reversal. Buyers shall pay any and all association fees, deposited, reserves, or other charges associated with the transfer of the property not to exceed blank. I usually go to the MLS, go to the listing, and what I'll do is I'll look down here to see if there's any other fees. You see mandatory fees, other fees, it says no. Let me see if I can find a property that does have other fees associated so I can show you what I mean. Yeah, see this right here? This says you're an HOA, and this one did a good job. They even put the website, like I told you, where you can see the rules, restrictions, and stuff like that. You also have mandatory. It looks like it's $272 quarterly for this HOA, but there is a resale certificate. They have a lot of other fees here. Resale, delivery, capacity. They got a lot of fees there. So you, as the buyer's agent, you're going to say, I usually, if it's a resale certificate, I usually will do give a little bit for transfer fee, but this is a resale, delivery, capacity. They got a lot of stuff there. Let me see, did they attach? So you can put a set amount. What's the max amount your buyer? Hey, we're really, I know you got all these expenses, because we're transferring or changing. I'll give you, hey, maybe you'll be, I'll give you $300 towards those fees. So anything $300 or more, the seller has to pay for it. And sellers shall pay any excess. They have a lot of fees, so this is a offer, guys. So I'm working for my client, the buyer. So I'm gonna try to get them as least money as possible, understanding that, hey, maybe you do need help with the transfer and you got all these other fees. I let my client know, or my buyer know, it's not just you. They got other fees they paying for, so we're gonna give them a little bit of money to help for the transfer into our name, the transfer fee, and let them take the rest of the bill, the rest of these. This was this really Summerwood? It must be in a gated portion of Summerwood. But like this one right here, where it says other mandatory fees, where it's just a transfer fee of $300. If it was a straight up transfer fee of $300, then I'd just go ahead and put the $300. Like, look, we got that already there, $300 in there to say, hey, we'll cover the transfer fee, and trust me, you guys cover the resale certificate, because a resale certificate is generally not cheap. Okay, I've seen them vary from $300, and you have to make sure that the HOA is going to do it in a timely fashion so you can hit your deadline here. So that's why I always put 15 days. I've even put 17 days, just depending, because these are days consecutively. So you got to keep an account for weekends, holidays. Also, you got to know that you're not going to want to order a resale certificate until after the option period. So if your option period is 10 days, go ahead and do 15 or 7, right? If it's 7 days, do 10, but at the very minimum 15, all right? But it doesn't give person a lot of time, so be careful with these dates in here. For example, nothing kicks off until after the option period. You don't want anybody to spend money on a resale certificate and you're deciding you're backing out, right? So it's fair to say, hey, after, let's say we had an option period of 10 days, this is only giving them 5 days after the 10 days to get this resale certificate. So even if they're best of luck, even if they were really, really lucky and they went to the HOA on day 11 and said, hey, I need a resale certificate, there is highly unlikely that the HOA is going to be, you can pay to rush it and you'll pay extra to rush it, but they're not going to speed up because of your contract and say, I'll have that to you in 5 days. You need to contact the HOA and see what their timing is on getting this back, okay? So just to protect your client, as a buyer's agent, I might put 15 days. As a listing agent, I might push back and ask for a few more days, like 18 days, because it might take 8 days. If I have a 10-day option period, I only got 8 days to really get this over to the HOA and have them complete what they need to do. You're pushing it. So you might have to pay a little extra for them to do it. They do charge extra for expediting, but you want to get it in a timely fashion. So this is a time of the essence sort of thing too with this. All right, back to here. Seller authorizes the association to release and provide the subdivision information and any updated resale certificate if requested by the buyer, the title company, or broker to this sale. If buyer does not require the subdivision information or updated resale certificate and the title company requires information from the association, such as the status, dues, special assessments, violation, covenants, restrictions, and waive of any rights refusal, who shall pay for this? If I'm representing the buyer, I'm going to put Mr. Seller shall pay the title company the cost of obtaining the notices prior to the title company ordering the information. Because there's sometimes where the buyer might say, buyer and buyer's agent might say, we're not going to require the subdivision information because why? Because maybe it's located, you got all the stuff on the website, so you got that, and it's a brand new community. Maybe the previous owner only owned it for a few months, and it's clear that he didn't do any changes because it looks like it did when they first bought it from the builder, right? So you might say, you know what, I'm not going to ask for a resale certificate and save everybody some money. However, if this is here and they find out that the HOA or somebody else requires special money, like the HOA might say, well, you might not require, but we require it if we're transferring ownership to a different person. We require you to do a subdivision information. We require this. And if they're saying this, they require it, then who's going to pay for it? This is what this is covering here, okay? And in this assessment, like as a buyer agent, I'll be like, well, I didn't ask for it, so you look like you have to pay for it either way. But that's just another way to do that, okay? But the goal, guys, is not to beat other people up. It's to make a deal happen. But you do need to understand what these lines and what these things mean when you check them or don't check them, whatever. But after that, you're gonna go ahead and put your buyer's signature and send it over for the seller to sign. And if they agree to it, okay, it's all negotiation. If you have any more questions about the HOA, please let me know. Remember, you find that in on the MLS. You can look there. It tells you the HOA. If it's in HOA, it says yes, the name of the HOA, the phone number, and great. They even gave you a list to the link to the MLS. I'm sorry, the HOA website. You also see how much the mandatory fee is. If there's a transfer fee, that's what I would use in my form. Sometimes, again, I'm just recapping. Sometimes if you go to you might want to read agent remarks to see if there's something special that changed when it comes to the HOA. But also attachments. Sometimes they'll have attached HOA documents in there. You just need to be, take it, look at it. If they're saying, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, it depends on what your client wants to do. If it's a brand new construction home and this house is built 2018 and it looks I can look to see the history and see, oh man, it looks exactly like it did a few years ago. Doesn't look like many changes. I'd call a listing agent, hey, have you got any changes on it? And they, oh no, but I'll put in a pool, I did such and such. If it looks exactly the same, I might not push so much on a resale certificate. Please, I want you to thoroughly understand what I mean. Because you don't want to kill a deal over something so silly. But some of those resale certificates can be $400 or $500. And you definitely don't want to ask somebody to do that when you're in the option period. That's not fair for you to ask them to pay that money for a resale certificate for your client to tap out and say, we don't want to buy it. Not fair at all. So that's why you want to make sure you give them enough time, be considerate, communicate with the lender, communicate with the title company, or communicate with the HOA, communicate with the other agent, y'all. This is what makes a deal go smooth. The more open we are and communicate, the better it'll be in a smoother transaction. But that's it right now for the mandatory membership in the HOA. Let me know if you have any other questions.